Yeah, the jazz police hate me. You don't need to explain it back to me. You can see some boobs and you think that means I don't know anything. But actually, I know more than you. Shut up.
Emma's new record, Weirdo, is out now. Who has a copy?
I've got one.
There are signed copies over there. Rough Trader here. So if you want to get a signed copy, you've signed a couple.
I've signed a couple and I can sign some if you want it, you know, a bit more personalised as well.
What is your signature? Did you decide on a signature at some point?
I just scribbled my name. At first, though, when I first started signing records, I used to use my actual bank signature. So there are a couple of people that could maybe write some dodgy checks out there, but I've since learnt. No one teaches you this stuff at music college, so.
No one teaches you anything about playing music.
They really don't. They tell you nothing. They don't tell you how to do taxes, invoices, nothing.
Yeah. So where did you glean that stuff? Like, how did you learn it for yourself?
Trial and error, a lot of error, fucking up, and then having to learn from it really quickly.
Yeah. Were there particular people that you met, and I'm thinking like promoters, people that you made records with, who were like, okay, you're cool, I got to stick with you because it feels like everyone's out there in the wilderness a little bit. So you got to try and stick around, a good crew.
To a point, but I'm also a massive loner. I know I seem like really super cool, but actually I much prefer just being on my own a lot of the time. So I tend not to listen to other people. I tend to have that thing of someone tells me what to do. I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. Shut up. So I tend to just kind of ignore everything and just go head first in and figure it out.
You grew up in the north. You spent your first years in the north, playing trumpet in a brass band.
Literally, yeah. Playing a lot of music up in and around Leeds, and every single day I had a rehearsal or a gig, sometimes two. Saturdays were like something in the morning, something in the afternoon, something in the evening. I'd have something on Sunday. I was just super busy all the time, only wanted to do music, and that's just how I've been forever.
Yeah.
Whether I live in London or I moved to Cardiff and then I moved from Cardiff to London. Wherever I've been, I think I've had the same sort of life.
Yeah. And your folks were supportive? I was just thinking how my mum used to buy me a gig ticket at 10 a.m. when they went on sale on a Thursday morning when I was at school. And I think back and I think, fuck, thanks, Mum. Thanks for doing that. And like that has a profound impact in the way that you see music or see what you do, is having folks or having family who are like, yeah, go on.
I think my family were supportive in their own way. They were definitely supportive in the fact that like I, even still in my 30s, cannot drive. So growing up, they would take me to places, and that was their way of like showing support. But in terms of understanding what I wanted to do, I don't think they got it, and I don't think they still get it in some ways. The other day, my mum asked me, she's like, "Why don't you have an Ivor Novello?" Like she's figured out what this thing is now, and it's like that's not the way it works. But it used to be like you're never going to be able to buy a house, and not understanding the precariousness of the career. So yeah, they support in their own way. I don't think I've ever done anything conventionally, and I think it's really difficult when you want to work in so many different ways to look at someone who has like done what you've done and try and model that, because I really don't think there is anyone else out there other than like maybe Prince, but Prince didn't play the trumpet, so it's like there's still things that are different, and when people ask me for advice, I obviously do as much as I can to help, but also it's like I wouldn't try and copy what I've done because it only really fits me. I think I've worked really hard to make a life for myself that works for me. It's not necessarily replicable.
That's scary. That's scary going out on your own. I mean, it kind of like shakes you. We're taught all the way, from when we start school, is to follow the rules, do what you're told. So then to not do that, that sounds pretty terrifying.
Yeah, I didn't do a lot of doing as I was told at school either. I was pretty naughty at school, always in trouble.
You were talking all the time.
Just always like trying to pull pranks. Like I remember putting my little brother in a cupboard for a whole day. He's fine now. He's all right.
Took a few years.
Yeah.
2 years therapy.
I never got into massive trouble because I always got really good grades. I don't think they knew what to do with me, but I now know it was really severe ADHD, but because people were like, oh, she gets good grades, it can't possibly be that. I was kind of always dismissed as just being, a difficult, misunderstood teen.
That diagnosis came recently?
No, in my teens. Yeah, I found out in my teens I was dyslexic and ADHD, and then I found out later that I was autistic and I had OCD. So, just a smorgasbord of difficulties there.
It's a good buffet.
It's a good buffet. Lots to draw inspiration from for the music. So,
did that change? Did that give you a bit of an understanding about the way your mind worked and the way you see yourself? I know it sounds a bit like on the nose to talk about, but we all have like this sense of identity. I think a lot of people's identities around their job. Because you meet someone new, it's kind of like, oh, what do you do? So then to be an artist, to be a musician where there's not a clear path, and also to have these other things going on, there's a lot to like digest there, isn't there?
Yeah, I think I probably am quite a lot to digest, just as a person. But I was never going to do anything else. I was never going to do it in any other way. So hopefully I'm doing all right, I think,
What's been the hardest time? What's been the time that you thought, okay, I might stop? I mean, if life can only, life's not necessarily going to get better if I just keep on playing. Have you had those moments?
I can honestly say I've never had a single moment where I thought I wasn't going to do what I'm doing ever in my life. I've even had, not that long ago, like 10 years ago, even actually maybe up to about 5 years ago, having such little money that I could not like afford to go out and buy food, and I'm waiting in for like the red letters to come in from the bill companies and waiting for like the last reminder before I pay stuff because I had nothing. And even then I'm still thinking, well, of course I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm never going to stop. I knew what I wanted to do since I was a toddler. I was like, little kids are like, I want to be a firefighter or teacher, and I was like, I'm going to be an artist. I've always had that in me.
That's real, being skin. And
it's real.
I'm from like a very, very normal middle class family, and when I've been skin, I felt it very hard. I can't imagine people who maybe don't have a safety net that I might. It's like, oh, raining Tuesday morning, going to the Universal Credit Office, and you're like, this is shit. This really sucks. You feel it to your bone.
You do, yeah. It's hard. I definitely do not have a safety net. If anything, it's the other way around. And it puts a lot of pressure on you, for sure. But maybe it's also a good thing. I'm someone that likes to try and see both sides of a coin. And if something's really difficult, I like to think, well, what good things have come from this? And actually, it's just made me super determined. I've been really unshakable in my focus. Nothing was ever going to stop that from happening. And if I was someone that was like, questioning my choices or my artistic output and thinking, well, maybe I'll go try a different job and I'll just do it on the side, maybe I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. Maybe I would have fallen into the trap of just going further on the other path.
That's the name of the game here. Loads of fucking jobs.
Yeah, I have had loads of jobs. They've mostly been music, though, which is good in some ways.
Well, playing with other people, being in other people's bands.
Being in other people's bands, playing weddings.
That's a good one. You get paid all right there, don't you?
Yeah, it can be. I didn't get paid that well. And then we found out the band I was in, the drummer was nicking all the money, and that's why no one got paid very well. No. I had a big stint of doing a lot of what's called copying in musical theatre, so like working in the West End, making scores. I worked on the Olivier Awards for like 5 years, making like all the orchestral parts and stuff.
Oh, right.
Doing arrangements for people. Someone saying, "Oh, we need a big band arrangement of this," or I've done an orchestral arrangement of a quartet tune. I've done lots of weird, random stuff.
And how do people find out to get in contact with you? Did they get in touch because of your solo stuff?
No, it was just from, in those situations, people wouldn't even know that I release under my own name. It's like, I had two sort of different lives. And when I was doing a lot of teaching as well, I remember a kid at one point being like, I Googled you. You didn't tell us you were a famous YouTuber. I was like, I'm really not. And he's like, you had a video that had over 1,000 views. That's crazy. Like, you're a famous YouTuber, miss, can you put us on YouTube? And then kids started finding out about my music, but not really liking it because, you know, you're not really going to understand it when you're 10.
What were you teaching?
Singing, trumpet, guitar, leading bands. Yeah, bunch of stuff. Whatever I could do for money that still involved music.
I mean, there's a lot going on there, working different jobs, trying to keep your head just straight, kind of trying to keep your head screwed on. How do you think that you've managed to keep your head above the waves there and keep on going?
I think my mum would say because I'm bloody minded, but I think there's something in that. I think I'm just so focused on what I'm doing. It's you know, I was talking a bit earlier about the negatives of neurodiversity and like being like quite a, you know, difficult teen. But the flip side of it is that I have the most unshakable focus at points. I'll be in the studio and I'll be sat in the chair for like 12 hours. I'll forget to go for a drink or a wee, or, you know, I'm just so locked in. But then of course there's the flip side of like, I'll need to respond to an email and I'll just be like crying because I can't do it. So I think the true north is just knowing what I want to do, and nothing is going to shake that. My natural way is to just try and make a joke out of stuff. I think that's just how I've always been. I've always been the class clown at school. If it comes to music, like, you know, in this record, I'm talking about some really heavy, difficult stuff. There's like songs where I'm like, I'm going to kill myself, you know, really heavy material. But then there's some tracks that are, I think, funny, that make me laugh. Might not make other people laugh, but it makes me laugh. And I wanted to bring that into social media. It's like, that's just what I need to do to make things enjoyable. So... yeah, quick jazz lessons. I'll probably do more of them. People seem to like them. Not everyone appreciates them.
I feel like that's something that takes a few years to work out. Like, how do you speak with people online? How do you like present yourself?
I think it's just a knowing. I think growing up feeling so weird, feeling so othered all the time, I think you have to have a really strong sense of self, because you're sort of being battered in a lot of directions, and whether that's sort of like an insult that you don't quite work out until like a few days later, or like your literal family being like, you are so fucking weird. There's just so many different ways you've got to navigate that. And I think the only way to do that comfortably is to sort of really know who you are. So when it comes to like how I present myself, I tend to not think about it, which has definitely landed me in hot water at points. But, it's all I know how to do, really. I think I spend so much time masking in lots of ways to try and seem like a functional human. I can't mask completely by changing my personality. I've got to be myself.
How did you meet Giles Peterson? The new record's on Brownswood. Giles is such a legend. Also a great name.
Best name.
You know it's Gilles, but he stopped correcting people.
Yeah, he's actually French. It's wild. But sounds like he's a proper Cockney. I actually don't remember the first time that I met him. I feel like he's always been in my life in a way.
He is a bit of everywhere, isn't he?
Yeah, and I feel like we're sort of so intrinsically linked in lots of ways. Like, you know, obviously through music. And there were so many times that I was going to sign to Brownswood, but I just ended up doing something else, and I formed my own label and just was like, yeah, I want to go do this. And but he was always still a fan and still super supportive. Yeah, he's wonderful. And he really trusts me, which is amazing. So when I was making this record, I've kind of got a clause in my contract that says that no one can tell me what to do, which is great. Like creatively, it's like I get final say on everything. Of course, I have been to his place and like played him stuff, but it was never a case of him saying, I think you should do this or that. He's just like, be yourself, do what you do, and it's going to be great, which is wonderful. And then I got to recently convince him to do a music video with me where I pretended to kidnap him and chain him up in my basement, which was quite fun.
You mentioned the lyrics to Weirdo. A lot of them do go deep. It was a particularly difficult time of your life. Could you tell us a little bit about that time and coming out of it, and music being the vehicle to come out of it? Is that what happened? Yeah,
I've said in a couple written interviews that like this record, making it, saved my life, and I really mean it. I think music is the healer, it's therapy, and for me to get all my thoughts out and process things through the music, it was really cathartic and important for me to do, because I didn't end up making exactly the record that I set out to make. I started it in 2022 when I come back off tour. A little bit before then, I wrote the track Weirdo was written in like 2021. But I wanted to write about being burnt out and like neurodiversity and trying to accept a lot of stuff that, well, to celebrate, not just accept a lot of stuff that I found difficult over my life. And then at the beginning of 2023, when I already was in a really shit place, my partner died really suddenly and unexpectedly, and it just, completely ripped my entire world apart. And I had 6 months of doing nothing, just staring at the wall, playing Zelda, trying to just make it through the day, or at points just like even less than that, just being like, you just got to make it to lunchtime, and like, okay, you've done that, do you think you can make it to dinner time? And then, okay, I made it to bedtime, now I get to go do the same thing but upstairs. Okay, can you make it to 6 a.m? Just these kind of like small windows of like, can I get through this? And then I realized I needed to get back to who I was. I needed to get back to making music, because that's all I really know. It's kind of all I am. It really is my identity in so many ways. So I was like, well, I started a couple songs already. How can I just find myself again through this process of being creative rather than just like staring at a screen? And it was difficult at first because I hadn't sung in 6 months, so it felt like a little bit alien for a second. But then it felt like the most natural thing ever once I got over the guilt, because you do have a lot of guilt being like, I shouldn't sing, I'm not allowed to feel good, and singing for me makes me feel good, it makes me feel like myself. So I really pushed through that and spent an entire year on my own doing everything on the record, like playing all the instruments, writing it, producing it, recording it, mixing it. And when I got to the other end of the record, I felt like I'd really processed a lot of stuff. Like, not everything, I think I'll still be processing it for the rest of my life, but in so many ways I felt like I come back to myself, or a new version of myself, like a version 2. And I hadn't thought about anyone else when I was making it, just myself, which was like probably the first time in my life. And then I remembered that other people were going to hear it, and it wasn't going to be mine anymore. It was going to be other people, and they were going to have their own experiences with it. And I realized that no one really makes music about grief. It's a bit of a taboo subject in lots of ways, even though it's something that we have all or will all experience. I think people want music to be a little bit lighter, which is fair enough. For a lot of people, it's escapism. They don't want to be thinking about the thing that's weighing on them when they listen to music. But for me, I really needed to do that, and I needed to do it in a way that felt funny at points, because it's a surreal thing to go through, because you'll be grappling these really existentially huge questions of like, what is life, what is death, and then you were like, oh, I've got to make dinner. There's just all these like weird extremes in your day. So I tried to make a record that reflected that and hopefully helps people. I don't think I realized at the time that I was doing that, but hopefully that is how people receive it. So yeah, it saved my life to make it, 100%.
Well done, first of all.
Thank you.
I don't want to sound condescending or whatever that is, but like, well done. Good on you for doing that, because working through that and writing songs about it feels like one of the best things you could do.
I think it's the only thing I can do. I think it's the only thing I can bring to the world in a way. It's just my art, my creativity. I think it's why I'm here on the earth. So it was like a definite conscious decision of like, am I going to be here or not? It's like, well, if I am going to be here, I need to really be here. And I need to be myself and live that purpose. Otherwise, I'm just going to leave.
When you realised that other people are going to hear it, and it was not just for yourself, were there particular lines of lyrics that you thought, okay, am I going to am I going to keep that? Is that going to go out?
It wasn't that, am I going to keep it? It was more, oh, fuck, I've got to sing these on stage. and then it kind of dawned on me, it's like, this is really going to be emotionally difficult to do. This is going to be really hard. But I think it's worth it. I think it is worth it. It's worth it to be at Rough Trade Nottingham and singing a song about the worst moment in your life and to break down crying and for people to not be like, boo, just be like, we're here for you. And I think it's worth the risk. I'm someone that doesn't really like talk about my feelings, but I feel more comfortable singing about them. So in a way, it's kind of like, yeah, it's a good thing. I think it is allowing me to open up more just in general. And I've just realized a good tip that when I go see my shrink this week, maybe I'll sing everything that I find difficult to say.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
101. Is music everything you're doing now? I mean, I'm so aware that a lot of artists and musicians who we see on stage and they're playing big venues, a lot of them are doing other jobs. And I mentioned just before you came on that it's something we want to celebrate and accept kind of with open arms and talk about. I feel like increasingly we are in a world where actually by sort of not communicating, we're letting the evil people win.
Music's my one thing, and it has been my one thing for about 12 years or so.
It's a good amount of time.
Yeah, but I think what I do within music, you could look at it as like lots of different part-time jobs, because although at the minute I've been writing this record and not doing other things, I have had periods of like doing lots of remixes. I DJ a lot. I do like broadcasting and radio stuff. I have been in other people's bands. I've done some like production and mixing, like consultancy. There's like lots of different ways of making money, being an artist and helping other people be artists, but it's depending on how you view it, you might not see it under that banner of like my name and my output. You might think of it as lots of different jobs. So in a way, it's great for me to work like that, because as I said, my attention span, not so good sometimes. I really need like something shiny to keep me locked in, and then another shiny thing to keep me locked in. And it means that you're never bored. You've got a different thing going on every day, and you
don't have a PA. You wake up and you open the emails and go.
If I have to look at an email, it makes me feel literally sick, which makes me sound like really like ridiculous and privileged, but it really does. Just like, I just want to sing. And if my manager ever has to like sit me down and like go through a list of stuff, I'm just like, I find it really difficult. So yeah, I think, well, for lots of reasons, I couldn't have a normal job because of like my autism. For sure, I couldn't have had a normal job, but I think the life that I've made for myself with these different ways of working that you can see of like a million part-time jobs, that's what works for me. And I think it works for a lot of people as well. Like, you want to have a varied work life rather than seeing the same office chair every day. But for some people, they love that, and that's great for them.
Sounds like quite a nice life, I think, sometimes, if you can get away with it.
Yeah, my brother has a normal life, a normal job, and he grew up playing the drums. And I remember saying at one point, I was like, I'm going to recruit you, you're going to be in my band one day. And he's like, Emma, I'm not kidding. Your life seems like a fucking nightmare. I want to be able to come home and stop thinking about work and just like see my cat and not have to think about any of that stuff. And I was like, yeah, that's the opposite life for me. It's 24/7. So yeah, fair play.
Just to back up a bit, you played all the records on Weirdo. You produced it. How does that work? Like, where do you start? Where do you end?
Yeah, in terms of like the production, I went in with like quite a clear idea. As I want it to be a little bit more guitar and synthy, less sort of traditional jazz palettes, bringing more of that kind of rock fusion side of me out, which people wouldn't necessarily have figured, like being like, some people only think of me as a trumpet player, and it's like, I shred the guitar. Kurt Cobain was my idol when I was 13. Like, I wanted to show people this side of me as well, and I needed it for myself. So I went in with this clear idea, and I think that's kind of the main role of a producer, is to have this overarching idea of the whole architecture of a piece and how you can get to that. And then I started writing always with that in mind. And when I'm writing, I'm thinking about how I'm arranging it. I'm thinking of how I'm going to perform it. I'm thinking of everything down to like, these are the kind of drum fills that I'm going to want to play. This is probably how I need to record it, and therefore this will be how I need to mix it. So I think for me, all the things are happening at once, and it kind of makes sense that then I just do it all, because it would take longer to explain it to someone than just to do it myself.
Saves the bother.
It saves the bother, but also I was in a point of life where I just really needed to not have to think about deadlines for other people, because when I've done arrangements for other people, they want them by a certain time, and I find that really difficult, and I needed to not have to think about it.
Practically, if you're sitting down in a drum kit and you're playing the song from start to finish, you're hearing it through your head, you're hearing it in your mind, you hear the inflections, you hear the bits and bobs that you want to, it's kind of in your brain, it's all in your mind until you put it on layer. Is that the way it works?
Yeah, I'll go into making a song and I know exactly what I'm going to do. I've even woken up with entire songs in my head, like the whole production and everything. Sometimes it's not always like that, but sometimes it is. But when it comes to the recording process, the song is written, it's all done. And then I'm thinking of it like, okay, I'm the producer in the studio. How do I get these musicians to make what I want? It's easy because it's me. So I can just sit and, track something and be like, that's not quite right. It's not quite the right feel here. Or I just do it again. And I don't have to worry about communicating to my usual drummer and being like, that's not quite right. Or, trying to bring something out of them. I can just do it again.
And then to hold it in your hands and it's like, yeah, you made that. You made that by yourself. What's that feeling like when you first get a record in your hands? Or this particular one?
It felt really special. I remember the moment that I first saw it. It was the other Giles in my life that gave it to me in the moment. And it felt really weighty. It felt like a really heavy record to hold in my hand. But I was so glad because there were lots of things I had to fight on, because I did quite a bit of the design myself, like with someone, but like I'm sort of art directing everything. I had to push really hard with the label for the front cover. They were not so on board with it at first until I really explained my reasons for it, and I completely understand, because it's a risk for sure.
Was it the toaster?
Yeah. Also the fact I am 100% naked and I'm doing a thing. I'm trying to bring like real life and death into the scene. So I'm like, and excuse my language, I am literally pretending to have a wank in the bath, and there's a toaster on the edge, and there's a rubber duck. I'm wearing like glam makeup, but I'm also like super vulnerable, and I'm like, literally naked, and it took a bit of effort to convince everyone to get on board with the vision. But I also had someone from the label there as my bubble fluffer, who was there to make sure that no nipples were captured on film.
Good on you for following through with it.
That's just kind of how I am. I have like a very clear image of what I want to do, and nothing will stop me from making it happen, whether I'm right or wrong. I
have to say, I didn't think of the wanking bit, and I didn't think the fully naked bit. I don't know. But you can see it now, can't you?
Yeah, now I've pointed it out. Yeah, you can see it for sure. Yeah, my mum wasn't too pleased either. She called me. She's like, "Is this all on computers, or are you actually naked?" I'm not sure how I feel about this. I was like, well, it's gone to print, so it's a bit late.
Did you have any issues with it? Because I know bands like, if you have a swear word in your name, they're going to censor that. Like Twitter or X or Instagram will censor you. So did you have any problems with that?
I've had a lot of problems, particularly on social media and YouTube, because the first single from the record is called Wanna Die. I don't know if anyone's tried searching for that. But it immediately sends you to the Samaritans. It's been like heavily censored on social media, which is difficult when they were like, this is the first single. I want everyone to love it and listen to it and really understand the kind of angle that I'm coming from. And it's not even like reaching people, because social media doesn't understand nuance, doesn't understand that it's actually a record about survival and overcoming that feeling of wanting to die. They just immediately go, no, you can't have this. So yeah, you can't search for a lot of the song titles anywhere, which is difficult when you're trying to sell records. That sucks when you're trying to reach new people. There's like a lot of barriers to get through, but when you have a core of people that like care and want to know what you're up to, like I put a lot of time and effort, for instance, into like my texting list and my mailing list, and I feel like as long as I can get stuff to those people first, I usually let people know first through these kind of avenues about stuff that I'm doing, then it feels like you can kind of circumnavigate the man a little bit. Although they found out ways to do that as well. Like I remember getting, what's it called? Shadow banned, I think it's called. Okay. By asking people to sign up to my mailing list on social media, then immediately you get like knocked down because they don't want you to leave the platform. There's just all these kind of games that you feel that you've got to play, and it's already boring and annoying. So hopefully I can just keep making music and not thinking about this side of stuff, and only time I can interact with social media is to make stupid videos about playing the trumpet.
Videos are good. The videos are funny. Have you got a bit of you've got a bit of heat from those from because I mean jazz and particular genres of music, people get quite serious about it, don't they?
Yeah, the jazz police hate me. They really hate me, which is mad because when people talk to me about like, oh, your music isn't jazz, and it's like I literally have 2 degrees in jazz. I think if the police were going to give autonomy to anyone, it would be me, with my pieces of paper saying that I know jazz to a high level. But the jazz police, you know, they don't fuck with me, and that's fine. Whatever. I think, yeah, it's funniest when I did a video the other day about making fun of bebop, and I said that bebop was nonsense, and then I played something on the trumpet saying that it was all nonsense. But what I'm doing is actually like really carefully outlining a chord sequence, and it is like, you know, it's just pure bebop. But I'm making fun of it, saying like, just play anything, it doesn't matter, no one's listening. And people get really offended, or they explain it back to you. They're like, actually, what you're doing is definitely jazz, and you are outlining the chord. And you're like, yeah, I know, dude. You don't need to explain it back to me. I know that like you can see some boobs, and you think that means I don't know anything. But actually, I know more than you. Shut up. It's difficult.
Do you interact with them? Do you comment back?
Yeah, always. always comment back. And like I like to sort of pretend that I don't know what they're talking about either. Like being like, oh, do you have any advice for this? I'm like, you should probably grow a goatee.
It's quite good. It's quite good advice, actually. I liked your how to be a famous trumpeter. Be a man.
You got to be a man. You got to have a goatee. And I did another one where I said you got to have round glasses and a beret.
You're halfway there.
I do have a beret, for sure. And I was definitely a teenager walking around rural Yorkshire listening to bebop wearing a beret. And everyone hated me, but you know.
Hey, good to chat. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm a big fan of asking people about their big work gaffes, their memorable days that they just kind of wanted to end. You know, I think a lot about, I worked at the pub down the road not far from here, and I'd smash glasses and just fuck things up and be a nuisance all the time. And it was just kind of every day. I never sort of got over it. I never got better at it. And maybe I'm projecting here, but I do enjoy other people. I do enjoy the Schadenfreude of other people's work experiences. Have you got any memories from working precarious short-term employment where you fucked it up?
When I first moved to London, I worked at maybe I shouldn't say the company name. I'll just say it was a coffee company, and I fucking hated it. They were awful. It sucked. And I just used to like swear at the customers all the time.
You swore at the customers?
Yeah, because when you work in the service industry, even though it was for a short amount of time, you really get a snapshot of how awful some people can be, how entitled and impatient people are because they see you as lesser than. They're like, you're here to serve me. I'm paying money, therefore that negates any manners because I'm paying you. And I worked in one of the biggest coffee places in London, and I used to like, you know, be making the coffee, and people are right next to you. They're waiting to pick them up, and they're just like, I've been waiting for 3 minutes now. Where is my latte? And just getting really aggy. I'd be like, can you just fuck off? Or like, can you just wait, you entitled maybe I shouldn't say that. But I would just insult people and just sort of let them know that I'm not going to let you belittle me. And then the manager found out that I was doing that. He's like, maybe you should be away from the customers for a couple of weeks till you calm down, because we can't be having this, because some of these people might be like secret shoppers and higher ups coming to test us. But I would still do it. I'd be like cleaning up the like all the tables and stuff, and people would just have just left stuff in the most disgusting state, which is something that I was brought up to told never do. Always take all your litter, always leave things as you found it. And as people were leaving, I'd be like, thank you so much for all this mess for me to clean up, you fucking twat, or whatever. And yeah, and then when I was like, oh, I've got to leave this job, they were like, great, awesome, we're quite happy about you leaving.
Cheers for watching. This is 101 Part-Time Jobs. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, and all podcast apps. We've done interviews with Aurora, Kneecap, Idols, Lauren Maybury of Churches, and loads more. So tap into 101 Part-Time Jobs on Spotify, Apple, and all podcast apps.